I would like to speak specifically to those of you who are here from the community at large and aren't employed or currently students at the university. Your support in this past year has been critical and invaluable. We thank you for your gifts. We thank you for your support. We thank you for your advocacy. And it's not over yet. So we will be communicating with you on a regular basis to make sure that you can help a university that can help, in turn, this community to become everything that it needs to be. I would also like to recognize specifically the students who are in the audience. I love seeing Mary Hausch's journalism class here. I expect rigorous questioning when this is all over. I also see many students in the audience, and of course our graduate and undergraduate students, representatives on stage. You have been colleagues at arms over the past year. Again, I look forward to us being strong and united in our ability to educate legislators in the community in the value of higher education this year. And finally, to all of our faculty and staff. Universities are built from faculty. They are the persistent feature of universities. They are the link between students and the workforce and economic success of a region. Our faculty are critical to everything that we do. This past year, our faculty and staff have been challenged. They've been challenged with furloughs. They've been challenged with pay cuts. They've been challenged with additional workload. With the loss of so many of our colleagues, they've been challenged with dramatically increased responsibilities. Yet, because of your hard work, because of the sacrifices you've made, and because of the commitment to this institution and our mission, we have done a phenomenal job serving students, making sure they're gaining access to class, and maintaining a strong research mission for this university. And for that, I wish all of us on the stage and all of you to please recognize our faculty and staff as the stalwarts of this institution and those who make a difference every day. Well, today we have a lot to cover. We need to review a year that's gone by, and I won't belabor it, we'll go rather quickly. We need to briefly discuss the planning progress that we've made, because a strategic plan is critical. A strategic plan is a critical element of universities, and I think sometimes we forget that we are still implementing a plan that we launched a couple years ago, and that in fact we've made significant progress despite the challenges that we've faced. We'll talk about something I know everyone wants to hear, which is our budget and our upcoming legislative agenda. We will review our planning priorities and commitments for this year and some urgent items. And finally, I want to talk about building our future and building the next phase of existence for UNLV. Let's discuss very quickly what our priorities were for last year. If you'll recall, at this time last year in the State of the University, I said we were going to work on addressing skill gaps through the Academic Success Center. While we don't have time to celebrate all that's happened, Ann McDonough and David Forges and the group at the Academic Success Center have done a marvelous job. Tutoring services are now being offered on a regular basis. Peer mentoring and peer tutoring is being offered. Skill gaps diagnosis has been implemented, not fully yet, but in at least pilot stages in reading, of course, in writing, which we've been doing all along with our Writing Center, and shortly to be in math. And these are critical features of ensuring our students who are accepted here that they can be successful. The Academic Success Center business has grown steadily over the past 3 years, and I congratulate Ann McDonough and her team for doing a great job. We said we'd develop a plan for general education. We fell short of the mark in this one, and I will bring this back later in our discussion because I believe it is urgent at this time to make sure that we move our plan forward and implement in preparation for a dramatically changed academic program. We talked about digital measures implementation, and I know these things feel trivial. We have begun the process, although it's not moving very quickly because of the loads placed on our information technology group during the Integrate install. But I will tell you it continues to make pace, and that will allow us to better gather and analyze data to assess how we're doing. We launched a new student email system, and this actually deserves note. The old Rebel Mail system wasn't too terrific. The new Gmail system has been widely lauded by all. And David and Kyle, is it working okay? No, oh, all right. Certainly a vast improvement over what we had, and part of the continuing efforts that we'll make to be able to communicate more seamlessly with our students. Our Integrate program has been successful. The first phase of our Integrate implementation has occurred. I can't emphasize enough what a difficult challenge this was. Integrate is a large, complex database. It is our new student information system. I have seen these types of installs bring an institution to its knees for an extended period of time. It happens quite regularly, with almost no additional staffing. Frankly, by doubling up on their duties for both Integrate and their day jobs, our committed Integrate team did a phenomenal job. We are up, we are running. I'll say there are relatively few glitches, and we look forward to really polishing the Integrate apple as this year goes on, because it affords us so much additional capacity to recruit and communicate with students and to manage our classroom environments. I want just everybody to please give the incredibly hardworking team, who I know is frazzled by this, a round of applause. We launched the Lindsay Institute and the Brookings Institution, the Brookings Mountain West program. I'll be bringing this up later. It is becoming an increasingly embedded activity, and I have some rather exciting news to share with you about progress that we've made in both of those arenas as we move on. We completed our $500 million capital campaign. What a tribute to the advancement team, and what an incredible feat in the midst of the worst recession in Nevada history. Congratulations. And perhaps most importantly, last year we faced the challenge of our 10-year accreditation visit. Now, accreditation is a vital component of any institution. It takes a significant team. Many of you here have been involved in the accreditation activities. We did wonderfully in a time that was desperately bad. I think we could have used the opportunity to implode, but instead you pulled together, you celebrated the accomplishments of our faculty and staff over the past 10 years. And we gained 5 commendations and only 2 recommendations. This is the best accreditation report I have ever witnessed in any institution that I've been in. And all of you owned the success of that very successful visit. Thank you so much. Well, last year, we made some predictions about the budget and what we'd have to do. And just to remind you, we said we would probably have to consider program evaluation and elimination. And in fact, the budget cuts of last year brought us to that set of considerations. A sad time, one I hope we never have to repeat. We said there'd be limited class availability and perhaps enrollment caps. We haven't done enrollment caps yet. Class availability has certainly been somewhat limited. I hear regularly from faculty who say their classrooms are bursting at the seams. I thank you for taking on that additional load. We talked about the need for a new state funding formula. We did not achieve a new funding formula in special session, nor would we likely have achieved that. It is very much on the table, and it is a high priority issue with the Chancellor's legislative agenda. We talked about the need for increased registration fees and differential tuition. We did, in fact, add a $5 surcharge to students, and we have now received formal approval from the Board of Regents to proceed with differential tuition in high needs, high demand areas, which can certainly make a difference for us and for this university in terms of pricing ourselves more competitively against some of the competition in this area and in those specific arenas. We talked about the need for students and faculty and staff to work with our community to minimize the budget cuts that we were going to receive in special session. And I just need to say, you were tremendous. A recurring theme through this past year has been that you helped engage the community, you helped share our good news, you helped share the urgency of the budget messages, and through your actions and through your advocacy and through your hard work, we did in fact minimize the cuts that we received in this past special session, and I know that that same advocacy will be critical going forward. Remember, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon right now. Let's review, and this will be the last that I dwell on this topic. I don't want to overstate it. I simply want us to have a good factual understanding of where we are. We've lost $50 million, about 27% of our state base since 2007. We have implemented furloughs and increased workloads. We have eliminated or are in the process of reorganizing 7 programs. Our students are paying more for their education. We are covering the load through your hard work and commitment, and it's not over. We can certainly expect this current budget to last, the current set of cuts and this fiscal crisis to last through the next biennium. And we hope that there'll be a light at the end of the tunnel after that, but I wouldn't look for a V-shaped recovery. I believe that we will experience a much more slow and prolonged recovery period going forward. And that has deep implications for what we do and how we plan going forward. Let's talk briefly about the legislative priorities that we have for this biennium. I want to share them with you. And more importantly, our legislative communications team will be actively sharing with you, certainly every month, if not every week, so that you will be able to engage in the dialogue with other stakeholders and our elected officials. First, it's critical, and our Board of Regents, I believe, has bravely and rightfully said we want to maintain our current level of funding and restore COLA and merit. And for that restoration of COLA and merit would be huge. We can agree that it's a very, very heavy lift, but for our faculty and staff and the morale of all concerned, we've gone a long time. We're competing hard to keep our best folks here, and I will tell you, those are very important commitments, and I thank the board and the chancellor for their dedication and their vote on that, despite what some of the pundits have said about it. Perhaps a most critical part of defining our future is that we need increased flexibilities from our legislators. At a minimum, we need to be able to keep, once and for all tuition that's raised on our campus, so that our students are assured that every dollar they spend on their education is a dollar that is spent here at UNLV to improve their educational programs. We make that commitment. This is a top legislative priority, and we believe we need to separate our tuition and registration fees from the current formula and base allocations. I won't belabor the point of what happens to our non-residential tuition, but I believe that our ability to successfully recruit and keep dollars after having restoration of the state base, which has deficited us, our non-residential tuition, is an absolutely critical piece of the puzzle for UNLV, and will change our, and when it happens, will immediately change our economic fortune. In the past few weeks, I've talked to many different stakeholders, and I had what I would nearly call a heartbreaking meeting with our classified staff. I heard that even with the current set of medical benefits that we have, that people are foregoing monthly medications, that people can no longer afford the deductibles that they're paying, that people are giving up on routine health care because the benefits packages for someone who has a relatively low income have been so reduced and so attenuated that we are now jeopardizing the health of our employees. I can think of nothing more critical this year than to work very hard as a university and as a system to ensure that we have healthy employees by providing them with nationally competitive benefits. It's not only a critical market factor for when we bring folks here, but it is critical that as a community we are able to respect and care for each other through the provision of adequate benefits so that we have a health plan, not an unhealthy plan. I'm very pleased to announce that Dan Kleitch and the Board of Regents have endorsed a review of our benefits and are asking the question, what can we do to make them better? Would it involve pulling out of the current system? Are we allowed to do that? What can we do to restore benefits? And I'm incredibly pleased that our Chief Fiscal Officer, Jerry Bamonte, will be chairing that group. Anybody who knows Jerry knows that he's a bulldog. And I think we couldn't be better represented. We will request a mission-based formula study. This study is ongoing. I believe in our conversations with the consultant, many of the inequities and improbabilities of our current formula situation have been unmasked and will be looked at very, very carefully. We don't believe that implementation of a new formula will occur in this session. I believe that reallocation and other issues may take the oxygen out of the room. However, we need to be set for the subsequent biennium, and certainly an intersession study and ability to interact with our legislators after this session's up will be a critical piece of establishing a formula for success and not failure of higher ed. We will also request funds to support economic diversification and job creation in Nevada. Some of you laugh. How can we possibly find more dollars to invest in higher ed at such a critical time and during such a grave fiscal crisis? Yet, other states have done it and are doing it now. In Utah, where similar investments were made, $10 billion of export economy a year in Salt Lake City alone have resulted because of a critical set of cluster hires made to enhance biomedical research in that region. Similar programs in other states have been highly effective. If higher education isn't going to lead the way into a better, brighter economic future, economic diversification and workforce production, who is? I believe that we will get this job done. We also, as I've said several times today, need to show our legislators that UNLV adds value to this state, that we're a critical piece of our economy. Consider our non-residential students. We have more non-residential students than the rest of the system combined. Their direct spending in our economy here in Las Vegas, as part of our export economy, is over $140 million a year, and the economic impact is $250 million a year. I submit to you, any institution and any community would want much more of that, not less. When we add in our Thomas and Mack, when we add in our grant production, when we add in all of the value that you all add to this community, we are well over $1 billion in economic impact a year, approaching $2 billion a year in economic impact a year. We are currently working on a study with the help of CBER, our Center for Business and Economic Research, and we will be disseminating that information in advance of the legislative session, and I think it will be an eye-opener for the public, and you too will find that it's a great reason to celebrate a research institution in this community. So, I know many of you are concerned about the future and what it will bring and how it will affect you and how it will affect your families. I have to tell you, I believe sincerely that at this moment we are at the bottom of the valley. Now it will be a while before we get out, but we're starting to look up. Why? Policy changes made by the Board of Regents last year and our legislative agenda this year should lead to substantially more flexibility. And this is critical because if we're not going to be funded by the state, we need to be allowed to be entrepreneurial. We've spent 3 years preparing for this biennium, very seriously. Our provost, our chief fiscal officer, the deans, the cabinet, have all made rather heroic sacrifices, and we've worked hard. I will tell you, we are confident that we can weather the coming storm. Our most urgent priority is to retain current faculty and staffing levels and thereby preserve the educational and research mission that we need for this to be a healthy community. If we look then briefly at our priorities, and I'm going to go rather quickly over this. We plan on implementing differential tuition this year, expanding self-funded programs, and using educational outreach to generate new revenue streams. And this will be part of the picture that pulls us through this rather grim biennium. We will develop a better funding model to improve freshman enrollment and success and to support upper division and graduate education. And this all begins to tie together, you'll see shortly. I think it's critical that we consider that even at this time we need to retool so that we are poised to become the institution that we all want this place to be as part of our continued evolution. We will collaborate with the Deans and Faculty Senate to develop our general education plan. This will be a critical set of activities this year. We're done talking and it's time to develop and implement, and I have commitments from our Faculty Senate to be engaged in this process at the beginning and not at the end. We will launch first-year programs as many of you have already begun. We will begin to do this on a serious level next year, and we expect a campus-wide launch for freshman learning communities by fall of 12. Now I get to feel really good about something, and I think you will too. We have been working with our Brookings partners. We have had a year of courtship, and we've begun to really engage. The relationship has brought Brookings scholars to our campus. Those scholars are beginning to get to know us, to interact with faculty, and to interact with students. And after being here for a year, they were surprised very, very pleasantly by the high quality of scholarship that we have here, by the interest that they've generated, and by an incredibly talented and enthusiastic student body. This is leading to some good things. They would love to be deeply engaged in helping us develop curriculum. And a Brookings preferred curriculum is something I think that we could all celebrate and enjoy because it's about building better futures. But in addition, and this is really exciting, we believe that Brookings and those collaborating with them in the development of curriculum and in projects will be able to become Brookings non-resident fellows. And Rob Lang, give a wave to folks. Rob Lang and Bill Antholis came up with this idea. So imagine next year with Brookings non-resident fellows from UNLV working both in Washington and here, What an incredible claim to fame we'll have when we can say we might have as many fellows as Ivy League institutions in this country. I believe that this is a startling and wonderful opportunity, and one we really need to capitalize on. And I think that the addition to Brookings Fellows of interns from our student population working both on research projects here in Las Vegas as well as in Washington will afford tremendous educational opportunities. And this is the kind of deeper, richer engagement that I was hoping for when Brookings came onto our campus. We're also very excited about the launch of the Lindsay Institute Faculty and Graduate Fellowships for 2011. There will be an announcement coming out shortly about how to compete and contribute to make a better and stronger community through the Lindsay Institute. I thank again Lindy Schumacher, I thank Jeff Wilkins and Rob Lang, who's heading up that program. I think this is going to be exciting and a welcome adjunct to scholarship by our faculty in the service of our community. Thank you all very much. We are going to revisit and tune up our strategic plan. Strategic plans are not static or dead documents. They're an idea that was relevant in any given period of time when they were generated. There are a lot of good ideas in the strategic plan that you all helped forge, but it's time, after approximately 3 years, to come back to that strategic plan, to review it, to tweak it. I will be reconvening Strategic Planning Committee as the year goes on, and we will re-engage and evaluate what our priorities are, if they remain our priorities, and how they balance against the current fiscal situation and realities, and how they balance against new opportunities for this university to make an impact. We will work with our Faculty Senate, and this is a critical and important piece, to improve our culture and commitment to diversity. And I want to digress for just a moment. When your colleagues are losing their jobs, and when we are as sorely pressed in HR as we are, when benefits are thin, and people are picking up additional workload, it's challenging. It's hard to maintain morale, and there are many facets of our community that are hurting. This backdrop can exacerbate issues of culture, of diversity, and of inclusiveness. And these challenges have to be met head-on. I don't believe that we benefit by attempting to not embrace and try to solve problems that we are confronted with. I've heard through the PAC. I've heard through individual emails. I've heard from stakeholders across the campus that in these tough times we need to make and rededicate our commitment to having a welcoming, friendly, and productive campus. I will say this has to be a top priority. If we lose our sense of community, we will lose the core that holds us together. So I ask all of us to invest in whatever discussion the Faculty Senate leads us with, and we in the administration will do our level best to support the activities of the groups that you decide are appropriate. We too will make our top commitments to maintaining a positive culture and to minimizing conflict in very, very challenging times. And of course, now I've said this for the 5th time, everyone needs to be involved in advocating for this fine university, because that is part of how we're going to find a better future for our state. If we consider then those priorities, we will need a number of important groups. I will be calling on you to serve. Many of you need to be involved with our general education program, our ability to communicate through marketing and branding the value of UNLV, and our ability to recruit top quality students. And I know that the enrollment management team is already working on a very aggressive new recruiting plan along with new scholarship development. We are going to have a legislative communications group that will send information to the campus so that you are aware of the good things we do and of the urgent priorities that we have through our legislative session. We will certainly be entertaining some form of campus climate and culture group that, again, I think is critical. There is the Nevada System of Higher Education Benefits Group that Jerry will lead. It's going to be a major activity for the year. We will have a strategic planning update committee, an accreditation follow-up team, and if you didn't see the provost alert sent out yesterday, accreditation isn't just once in every 10 years anymore. Accreditation is forever. So we will be engaging in accreditation visits approximately at the end of this year and at the end of about 2 years and probably at the end of about 3 years, and that suggests that we need to maintain current staffing levels to support the new Northwest model for accreditation. And I'm sure our provost and the team that so ably managed the last accreditation visit will be communicating with you. I urge you, if you are interested, to attend the information sessions and get involved. Finally, we will be Consortium Faux Faculty Professional. Okay. We also have, as generated through a group right now led by Patty Iannuzzi, a consortium of faculty professionals and to help talk about opportunities, to help train up, to help deal with classroom issues and a whole bunch of other issues. And this is, at least for the moment, a good stopgap against the loss of our teaching and learning centers, which was one of the programs that we lost last year in the budget cuts. Finally, and this is the part where I think I need to just back away from the script for a moment. I think we really have to talk in plain terms about the challenges we have ahead and about how we're going to meet them and continue to build. Now, I will be the first to tell you, I believe there's been a lot of magic thinking, whether it's in campaigns or from the National Governors Associations. But the talk lately has been all about how we're going to cut higher education, how we're going to not raise tuition, how we're going to reduce spending, but we're going to graduate more students, and we're going to make them much more successful. I submit to you that there are efficiency and effectiveness issues that we should take on, and we should continuously attempt to improve our ability to serve our mission economically for our state. I will also submit to you that if we could cut ourselves to greatness, I would have done it a long time ago. So let's consider less magical thinking and more positive ways for how we should try to engage the future and plan on how we can still maintain our research aspirations and our ability to serve this community. First and foremost, every one of us, every day, has to communicate the value of this university. We have to enhance what people know about UNLV, whether it's through a sporting good event and Jim Livengood's witty commercials before basketball games, or whether it's through your meetings with a Rotary Club or a public outreach group, or whether it's when folks come on to campus for a Barrick lecture, for a museum exhibit, or for a Black Mountain event. We all need to let people see the value. The brilliant scholars, the fantastic students that we have, and our commitment to making a difference in the community through our actions. For example, our Engelstadt scholars, what an incredible bunch of students. I've watched them now from the first class that was admitted in January, and I watched them go from being self-conscious, awkward, and afraid to present in public to being smooth, polished, and confident in one semester. Why? Because they were asked not only to engage in very high-level scholarship, but we asked them to indulge in 100 hours of service. And through that 100 hours of service, they have gained an idea of what it takes to maintain a community, to build a community. And I just have to tell you two great stories. First story, one of the students grew up in Detroit, who's an Engelstadt scholar. This student had a challenging childhood, was on the streets, didn't have a good home to go to, spent a lot of time at the Boys and Girls Club, has come to UNLV as an Engelstadt Scholar, a high-achieving student with a tremendous amount of financial need, and is now volunteering for the Boys and Girls Club, and looks at the 4 and 5-year-olds that he's helping to mentor and to be a role model for right now, and sees himself when he looks at them. What an incredible opportunity to make someone's life better and to learn about the community around you while you're going to school and educating yourself. An incredible opportunity. But my favorite story from the Engelstadt Scholars is there's a program called Goody Two Shoes, and they give shoes to kids. Now, this might not sound like much to some of you, but if you've never had a new pair of shoes, this is something really special. One of our students got up and talked about how he staffed the back of the shop and helped to get shoes ready and put them out on the mobile display van and drove it to a school or a center, and was working with some of the kids so that they could get a pair of shoes. They get a voucher, they get to shop, they get a pair of shoes and a pair of socks, and some of them are so excited they don't want to wear them because they don't want to wear them out. One of the kids he worked with had gone through and finally picked the pair of shoes that he wanted. He's probably about 5 years old. And English was probably not his first language. And he looked over and said, well, how does that make you feel? The kid struggled for words for a while, and he said, it makes me feel like ice cream. Now, if that doesn't both encourage you and break your heart, I don't know what will. But that is what our students are now doing. That's what Engelstadt Scholars are doing, and that's part of a vision for an engaged future and a first-year experience that we believe our entire educational population needs. We are going to take advantage of some of the current reorganizations and some of the highly collaborative and entrepreneurial deans that we have to really begin to talk about how we can serve our community that is urgently seeking opportunities to expand our economy. And there are conversations that are being led by our private partners, and I think we need to listen to them because they represent opportunities for us. Information technologies is actually a widely employed work skill and is a hot area for technology and innovation in our region. And yes, it may center on resort management, hospitality, and gaming, but there are deeper opportunities in information technologies, and we should be discussing how we can work across divisions to create higher profile programs, and we've got donors and we have private industry who really want to support that activity. We need to work on gaming, and we have a great new dean of the hotel school who comes from the private sector and is very engaged in that arena, along with others on campus. Medical tourism. This is a phrase some of you may or may not have heard of. I was just talking to Larry Ruvo, and we were at the Keep Memory Alive fundraiser for the Lead Institute. Larry Ruvo with the Cleveland Clinic coming, with the Ruvo Center, and with branding of the Ruvo Center name across the world, is now talking about Las Vegas as a destination spot, much as Scottsdale is a destination spot because of the Mayo Clinic. But hey, if we can't beat Scottsdale for hospitality and medical tourism, then we shouldn't be in the game. We can win this game. Biomedical research as part of a healthcare supply chain and a healthy community is critical. Of course, we've talked about solar and renewables, and you know that we're working very actively in that arena with great support from Senator Reed, Congressman Berkeley, and Congressman Titus. We are also very concerned that we continue to be able to offer strong support to our K-12 educational partners, and despite the reorganizations and challenges the College of Education faced last year, I am confident that as they reorganize, we will find new and innovative ways to develop relevant curriculum that creates change and improves the readiness for college of K-12 students in Clark County. Now, how do we get to all these places? Let's consider just for a brief moment where we are. We are a major research institution that has grown up very quickly. We grew almost beyond our ability to keep up. And there were some really good times with all that growth. But the budget is desperately low. And we have positioned ourselves in a three-tiered higher educational suite here in Las Vegas in competition with Nevada State and CSN for heads, per head count. And that's a pretty tough competition, especially in a recession. But our formula has relentlessly driven us into what I call a head count shootout. Now, if bodies were the measure of success in the past, and then we get Nevada State, which is an access institution that provides a much less expensive education, and CSN, that's about 1/3 of our tuition cost. Does it make sense to try to compete by being one of the cheapest places? Is that the future of our university? And can we win, especially in this economic climate, competing against CSN and Nevada State for heads? If we don't choose to go down that road, if we can, for once, abandon a formula that has relentlessly driven us into an expansion model and take a breath and consider how we can maintain funding or grow funding through a quality model as opposed to the formula-driven quantity model, I believe that we will be a stronger, better university. Let's consider for a moment the food pyramid, if you will, of higher education funding. If you consider that at the base of that pyramid lie freshman and sophomore classes, and we all know that freshman and sophomore classes are the profit center for any university, and that what you do as freshmen and sophomores walk in the door is you give them classes and you take some of the funds from the base of the pyramid and you inject it into the top of the pyramid, which is more one-on-one education, smaller classroom upper division classes, graduate education, where the real value of a research university and access to great faculty is manifest. You can make that model work. But what happens when you have to compete against someone charging 1/3 as much? It's a difficult situation. You deflate the base. And that in turn impacts our ability to offer very high cost upper division and graduate education. To make it worse, folks transfer here from Nevada State and CSN. Now, we encourage transfer. We embrace it. But when they take much less expensive curriculum at CSN, and then they come into our upper division, that puts our fiscal model upside down. And it's just that simple. We have to find a way through a differentiated formula and through much more entrepreneurial approaches to our education to be able to fund full and successful undergraduate degrees in expensive and technically demanding areas, and graduate education, because we know that the degrees that we produce make a difference in this region, and we cannot forego them. And 2 years of education isn't the antidote for 4 years or advanced degree production. So we are going to work this year with all of you to create a better, more viable funding model for UNLV. We want to move away from our quantity model, and we want to move it towards perhaps a slightly smaller, higher quality institution that maintains revenue flow and can continue to give access at the upper division of our students to terrific faculty that can support that kind of individual mentoring that goes on in graduate programs, because that is the critical path forward for our university. Now, I'm not going to discuss a lot of details of what is an emerging plan right now. I don't think it's the right time, nor is it the right time in our legislative cycle. But I will be working with all of you, and there will be many discussions on how we can add value, recruit better, enhance scholarship and success of our students. And we have to remember, our focus needs to continually be, how does UNLV, as the flagship region and the flagship institution of this state, continue to add value to freshman education through the incredible experiences that we offer, whether it's first-year experiences, whether it's access to a Brookings recommended curriculum, whether it's being an Engelstadt scholar. What we need to be doing this year is to focus on delivering the highest quality education we know how, to make our first-year experiences dynamic and terrific and enticing, and to build our reputation as a premier institution, as an institution of choice, because our state can no longer afford the brain drain of good students perceiving that they do not have an institution of choice in Nevada. We must become the global university in a global city that creates quality education and keeps the best and brightest here in Nevada and serves to attract students from around the world to come and participate in our economy. We need to find that way forward. And in closing, I ask all of you to help. I ask all of you to commit, and all of you to take a part in this enterprise, because the time for this change is upon us, and we have to act to create a future that all of you can embrace and that is best for our students. And with that, I close the State of the University and thank you all so much.